information about everything this person does in school. We're here on our last history lesson ever. At least for the foreseeable future, that being at least for the next 20 years while I'll have more to cover. So Shaggy, I think to end everything on a more positive note, let's team up on our weaker and more vulnerable interns.
Sounds good to me.
Wait, what?
So interns, which is better, Star Wars or Star Trek? I think we all know the answer.
Definitely Wars.
Trek! Yeah, Trekkie for life.
You all disgust me. Star Wars has 3 amazing movies. That trilogy is so much better than Star Trek.
Didn't they start making a prequel trilogy?
Yeah, that doesn't count right now. Look, what we need to focus on is that Star Wars will always win. I mean, they didn't suck so bad that they had to get another cast and put them in the same freaking ship.
But John Picard was amazing. I mean, Patrick Stewart is so much better than Han Solo.
You take that back. I love Patrick Stewart as much as the next guy, but if you even try to compare him to Harrison Ford playing Han Solo, you will lose and I will beat the crap out of you.
I agree. You can beat me if you want to.
Come on. We'll prove it.
Fuck out. Thanks, Brad.
That's how it was too. They were all around my neck like a mane.
Okay, well, on to the facts. I guess the year 1950 brought us the first credit card, the first organ transplant, the first Peanuts cartoon strip, very funny if I might add, but it also brought the Korean War. The Red Scare was slowing down, but Senator Joseph McCarthy begins a witch hunt for communists, and the U.S. president orders construction of the first hydrogen bomb. On April 28, 1951, America leaves Japan and Truman signs a peace treaty with Japan to finally end World War II. Color TV was introduced this year as well, which is just opaquely clear on all 4 channels. On January 20th, 1952, Dwight D. Eisenhower was elected president of the U.S. And on June 2nd, Elizabeth II becomes queen at age 25 after George VI dies. Also, seatbelts were now being installed in cars because they could go faster than me on a bike uphill.
Told you can't beat me. I can't believe I didn't lose.
The same year, on April 9th, the Bolivian Revolution begins, and on April 12th, the polio vaccine was created. DNA is discovered in its double helix form as opposed to its triple helix form, previously thought to be in 1953, and that same year that the first Playboy magazine came out. I feel like there's a joke there, but I'm sure I can reach it on a PG level. Also, a New Zealander named Sir Edmund Hillary reaches the summit on Mount Everest on May 29th for the first recorded time. That's almost out of this world. Is that a relevant thing to say for 2000? Yeah, okay, I thought so.
I don't know, but Joseph Stalin dies that year at the age 74, and the Soviets start making some H-bombs as well. Let's just say that this started the Cold War. But don't worry, it's not all that bad. It wasn't a war with guns, it was a war of progress. So not as much death. See, Russia was upset that America joined the war so late, which killed millions of Russians, and America didn't like Stalin or the communists, so they both started a containment strategy, which basically was a way of saying both countries tried to outdo and scare the other by displaying weapons, bombs, and eventually spacecraft. But we'll get to that later.
The Korean War ended that year after involving China and the U.S. as well as a bunch of other countries, and in 1954 the British taxpayers' money went to finding the abominable snowman, which didn't work out too well as far as we know. On January 21st, the U.S. released the first atomic submarine, and the U.S. saw the rise of rock and roll with the rise of Elvis. Here's as much as one of his songs that we can play without copywriting it. What? Awesome! Well, on February 23rd, a bunch of polio vaccines were given to a huge number of children, and about 60 to 70% of them worked, until a certain outbreak occurred, which gave symptoms to about 200 children. Yeah. But later in 1955, they fixed it, and it's all okay now.
Also in 1954, reports of cigarettes causing cancer start to come in, and segregation is ruled illegal in the U.S. In schools after the Brown versus Board of Education trial. But there are still years of trial to come along after that. Okay, so in 1955, the Warsaw Pact is signed by USSR, Poland, Romania, Hungary, Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, and Albania. It is said they would defend each other and their communist ties. Well, whatever brings you together, I guess. But on the bright side, Disneyland opened the same year after the major success of Walt Disney and its animated comics and movies. Albert Einstein dies this year, and on December 1st, Rosa Parks starts the Montgomery bus boycott. On the 21st, the buses are desegregated. In 1956, the Suez Crisis starts when Israel attacked the Egyptians for nationalizing the Suez Canal. The Soviets almost got involved, as did the US, which heated the Cold War up some more. Let's take a break with Dr. Pietrzak.
Hello, I'm Dr. Pietrzak, and I'm here with NASA outside of the Space Cafe. Don't ask what it is, because I'm not telling. What's important right now is that you are going to be able to go into space for free. Now, you might have a lot of questions, like, is it dangerous? What's the catch? Dr. Pietrzak, what happened to all your other jobs? All in good time, people, all in good time. Now, but what's important right now is that I need test subjects. And since none of the astronauts here trust our $200 space rocket, we are relying on you, my awesome Americans, to come and join us. Yeah, it's gonna be dangerous, but what isn't dangerous these days? I mean, please. So come join us today, and you can go into space. No refund.
Well, I'll have to try that out. Free vacation? So back to some good news. The TV remote control was invented that year, and Velcro was also invented. Hooray for laziness! In 1957, Dr. Seuss publishes Cat in the Hat, and on October 4th, the Russians launched the first satellite into space called Sputnik. It's Russian for traveler. Speaking of Russians, they must have been Russian to making that thing. Ha ha! Now that's out of this world. Dog.
Stop, please.
Well, in Africa, one colony gains independence for Britain, which leads to Britain's decline later. As far as expansion goes, and Martin Luther King Jr. takes a leadership position in the civil rights movement. In 1958, Lego bricks become popular finally, and NASA is founded. In 1959, Antarctica becomes the International Science Preserve, so no country can claim it as its own, because who would want to? Really? It sucks. It's cold, and in 1960, we see the first presidential debates on television and lasers are invented.
All sci-fi stuff. In 1961, the Cuban Missile Crisis starts,
And told you it'd happen, though I never thought the X-Men would help out.
and the Berlin Wall is built almost overnight so that East Berlin people didn't flee to the better West Berlin. And in April, the Soviets launched the first man into space, which stepped up the game for the U.S. So later in May, to keep up and try to pass the Soviets, the U.S. launched its own satellite, Explorer 1, designed by Dr. Wernher von Braun, which led to the space race. John F. Kennedy said that Americans would make it to the moon before 1970. And we'll have to send Birdman out later to see if they're right. Also, in 1961, some freedom riders challenged segregation on interstate buses. They were attacked by angry mobs almost every time. In 1962, we see the famous escape from Alcatraz, the first James Bond movie, which is awesome, and the first person killed trying to cross the Berlin Wall. Oh, also, the first Walmart opened that year. Marilyn Monroe died of a drug overdose, and in 1963, John F. Kennedy was assassinated in a Ford when President Lincoln was shot in Kennedy. Or vice versa. Coincidence? I think not.
Well, the first Doctor Who episode aired that year, and the first woman went into space that year, too. On August 28th, Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech, and on September 15th, the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing happened as well. There started lots and lots of riots in Alabama, especially Birmingham. In 1964, the Beatles became popular and the Civil Rights Act gets passed in the U.S. Also, to be funny, I guess, Italy tried to stabilize the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I guess they should have asked Doofenshmirtz.
I don't get it.
Me either. Anyways, because the U.S. hasn't had enough war, they sent our troops to Vietnam in 1964. Lots of people didn't like that, especially the hippies. Ew, hippies. Well, to top off the year with a cool invention, Japan invents the first bullet train. That's pretty cool, I guess, if you're into trains and bullets. In 1965, Malcolm X is assassinated and our troops went into Vietnam with Forrest Gump at their side. And of course, Lieutenant Dan. Of course, also, the New York City blackout happened because Spider-Man didn't save the day fast enough, but eventually he fixed it. Wow, you finally get to make a reference of something that exists now. Yay, for progress. But on March 7th, Bloody Sunday happened. A march for voting rights happened and the police in Montgomery used gas, whips, and guns to beat everyone in the movement, which is not very funny at all. Man, why is this so depressing? No, don't answer that.
In 1966, a cultural revolution happened in China. Why do I always get the Asian news?
That way, if there's a joke, no one would get mad.
Oh, okay then. Well, the Black Panther Party is established, which is like the rough civil rights movements, and the first Kwanzaa is celebrated around Christmas time. The National Organization for Women is founded, and boys in the now. Get it? It's an acronym. My talents are wasted on all of you. Star Trek airs this year because it's awesome, and in 1967, the first heart transplant is done in Southern Africa. And the first Super Bowl is broadcasted to the whole U.S., which is all that's ever on anymore. Sir Francis Chester is the first to sail around the whole world by himself because he's apparently Batman and has to work alone. And Thurgood Marshall becomes the first African-American Supreme Court member. And flower power hits its height in California, which according to my research is not something to do with Mario. But instead is a slogan of peace and hate of the Vietnam War. So flower that power indeed, or I'll beat your...
Well, in 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4th at the age of 39. On April 11th, the Civil Rights Act of 1968 is signed, which prohibits discrimination of business and is where the movement for equality starts to become pretty equal. Also, Robert F. Kennedy is killed, and the Zodiac Killer, a serial killer who leaves behind clues to find his next victim, starts killing. And also, Albania withdraws from the Warsaw Pact because of some ideological reasons. I think it's because of the albinos. Well, we're on a roll today, aren't we? Also, in 1969, the space race continues and is blown out of the water as America reaches the moon first on July 20th. Hooray for America! Let's go to Birdman to check it out.
Let's prove and see if America really did make it to the moon. Look, there it is, right there. Now that that's settled, let's see what else there is to see.
Knew it would happen. Well, congratulations! You survived about 12 deaths.
Anyways, there's a border dispute between China and Russia. The Vietnam War peaks and Sesame Street airs its first episode. These are dark times indeed. In 1970, the Beatles break up and floppy disks are used for computers now. And in 1971, Richard Nixon kind of calms down everything in China for the U.S. Trade opens back up, and now all of our stuff is there. And in 1972, the SALT I is signed by the U.S. and USSR to stop making nuclear weapons. The Cold War starts to get around room temperature, so skipping all the way to 1989, the Berlin Wall fell on live TV, and every communist state was replaced by a non-communist one. And going all the way to 1991, the Soviet Union had fallen, the Cold War was toasty, and now it's over. Now the only thing left to fear is fear itself in Y2K.
Well, to fill in some gaps, this is what happened. VCRs are introduced in 1971, pocket calculators and the Watergate scandal all come around in about 1972. In 1973, the Sears Tower, the world's largest building at the time, was constructed, or finished construction, and the Vietnam War was over with the U.S. actually losing this one, and the Pioneer 2 was sent out to explore the solar system. In 1974, the Terracotta Army was discovered and the Indians test their first atom bomb, and the U.S. President Nixon resigned because of the Watergate scandal, because he didn't want to be impeached. In 1975, Microsoft is founded. In 1976, the first Ebola outbreaks happens in Sudan. And 1977 marks the best year ever as when the Star Wars comes out. The best movie ever. In 1980, Mount St. Helens are up and the Pac-Man is released. In 1981, Donkey Kong is released as an arcade game which spawned the Super Mario Bros. Series the games on the NES, as well as IBM getting personal computers for everyone. And a bunch of other games, movies, and other crazy stuff happened, more civil wars than the rest of the war, and more disgraces and disagreements. I could sit here and talk about it, but we'd be here for the next 10 years. So this was Anakin.
And Shaggy.
And PK Fresh.
And that agent.
Signing off on the last time on This Is the Station that will air things this person does in school. Watch out for Y2K.